Hi everybody, my name is Ozcan, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to work with Unity3d and how to make video games. First we're going to start by downloading Unity. So if you don't know where you can download Unity from, you can go to store.unity and choose the personal free one, download. It's a free software, you don't need to pay for anything. All the features that we're going to need in this tutorial series is available inside the personal free version. So go ahead and click download, and then that's going to take you to a page where you can actually download an installer. The installing Unity is pretty straightforward. You just have to choose location where you want to install Unity. You're going to choose which platforms you want. So if you want to develop games for iOS or Android, you have to check those boxes. If you want to make games for WebGL, you have to check that box. For now, we're going to be just keeping it for PC or Mac. Therefore, you don't need all that other features for now. When you click the installer, it gives you the installer, and then you can install Unity from there. Once you're done with installment, then it's when you click Unity, it opens up, and you need to create a new project. Make sure it's a 3D project, and let's say tutorial series under Unity projects, and I'm going to say create project, and the Unity will prepare the files and create the project. Now what comes here is the Unity editor. Okay, every editor from every scene, so this is a scene. You can also go by new scene, and it opens up a new scene. So every scene starts with a main camera and a directional light. So let me explain you the editor, because we're going to be using a lot of these features. First of all, the windows. As you can see, there are several windows in the scene. There's a hierarchy window here. There's a project window, assets folder, a console, right? There's an inspector, and there's a game window, which you can alternate between the scene and the game windows. Now the scene window is what actually your level is like. It's a scene, so you will be placing objects inside the scene. For example, characters, enemies, power-ups, anything that will take place in your games will go into the scene. And your scene is rendered through a camera object. Now, whatever this camera sees, it is reflected in the game window, and this is the actual window that the players will see when they're playing the game. For example, if I have a cube in my scene, right? I put a scene here, cube in my scene, and my camera sees the cube now, as you can see. So the cube will be rendered from the camera's position in the 3D space. Okay, so if I move the camera, as you can see, I'm going to move the position of the camera, and you can see the cube is actually moving around, and which is done through the transform component. I will get to that later. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the inspector window. Now, any object that you place in your scene will take place under the hierarchy window. And when you click on these objects, you can actually see its components in the inspector. For example, this cube has 1, 2, 3, 4 components, right? The first one being the transform component, and then you have a cube mesh filter and a collider, which is denoted with the green. As you can see, the green outline. You can make it larger or smaller. And there's going to be a separate video about colliders. And a mesh renderer. Mesh renderer is the actual component that renders 3D meshes, 3D objects. Okay, and the transform component is the component that stores the object's position, rotation, and scale in the 3D space. So if you actually change its rotation, so for example, I'm changing its angle I'm rotating the angle, rotating the object over the y-axis, right? Or around the x-axis, and rotation changes. Same as scale will be changed if you actually enter different values here. For example, I'm going to enter 5. Now it's a 25 meter long cube. Actually, it's not a cube anymore. So this is how you can manipulate, one way to manipulate objects. Some of the menu items here. Oh, before we go there, you can actually add more components. You can add audio source, or you can actually write new scripts, which I'm going to show later in the video series. You can create scripts to manipulate objects, and you can add those as components to these objects. Now let's take a look at the menu windows. Important ones, we have game object window menu, where you can create an empty object. You can create other primitive objects such as a sphere. You can create a cylinder, plane, quad, terrain, some different stuff. There's a audio, which actually creates an audio source to play some audio. Particle systems will create particle systems, cameras, and the UI is for creating user interface. So as you can see, there's several objects that will come in handy later: text, image, button, toggle, slider, scroll bar, drop down, and input field. For example, entering username. And component window will allow you to add different components, physical components, to your objects. Navmesh is for actually navigation objects, for if you want your it helps your objects, characters in the game to find the best path. So it's used for pathfinding, and there are several other stuff. And in the window menu, several things that are important we're gonna cover for now is asset store. So asset store actually takes you to a Unity asset store where you can get assets for your game. These can be 3D models, images, textures, or several plugins, scripts, materials. For example, in our game, we're going to be using some free soldier model. Okay, I'm going to find it here. Soldier. Price. When you click the price, it's going to bring the free and the low. It's going to set it up in a way so lower priced items will appear first. It's going to go to higher priced items. So Toon Soldiers, that's what I'm going to use. And if I want this asset to be included in my project, all I have to do is just to download it, and then I'm going to import it. Now you can see that the soldier, once it's imported, it takes place under my assets folder, and later I'm gonna make a prefab out of it, and I'm gonna be using it for next tutorials. So again, we have the hierarchy window here, project folder here, console. This is important when you want to check out the messages. That you can use the debug log object method, and that way you can actually print messages to debug your game, or if there are any error messages, they're going to show up here as well. And inspector window is one of the most important. You can see the situation of the components that your object has. Now when you actually press play button here, it starts playing the game. It starts the game loop. Right now nothing is moving because we don't have any scripts, we don't have anything going on, but later you will see the difference. When you also press stop, pause button, it pauses the game, and when you click this one, it actually plays one frame. So every game is run in something called update method, and this update method is run 25 times a second. That's why it looks continuous, right? So update method, everything that happens in the game actually takes place in the update method, and that way the game looks continuous. So when we're actually moving objects, you will see when you click this, game objects will move one frame at a time. For now, it's not going to make any difference. So I can actually stop the game. And that's it for the first video, and I'll see you in the next one.